No one is wiser than Socrates. That single sentence spoken by the Oracle of Delphi sent shockwaves through Athens. How could the wisest man be one who claimed to know nothing? Socrates himself was baffled, until he understood. True wisdom begins with recognizing your own ignorance. But this was no ordinary philosopher's riddle. It came from a woman in trance, seated above a chasm in the earth, speaking for the god Apollo. Her name was never remembered, only her title, the Pythia, the Oracle of Delphi. For nearly 1,000 years the oracle shaped the course of history. Her words guided emperors, launched wars and foretold disasters. She answered questions with riddles, yet her influence was anything but vague. Croesus, Alexander the Great, even Roman emperors bowed before her voice. In an age dominated by men and armies, the most powerful force in the ancient world was a veiled woman, inhaling vapours in a sacred temple, whispering the future. Who was she? What gave her such power? And why did the world believe that the voice of Apollo lived at Delphi? This is not just a story about prophecy. It's about belief, power, and the enduring mystery of the Oracle of Delphi. In today's video, we'll learn about the mysterious and powerful Oracle of Delphi, who she was, how she delivered her prophecies, and why her words held such sway over the ancient world. We'll explore her role in shaping decisions of kings, philosophers, and entire empires. You'll discover the rituals behind her trances, the science that may explain her visions, and the myths that surrounded her for over 1,000 years. The sacred geography of Delphi. The geographical setting of Delphi was as crucial to its mystique as its religious significance. Located approximately 180 kilometers northwest of Athens, the sanctuary occupied a spectacular position on the southern slopes of Mount Parnassus, overlooking the valley of the Pleistos River. The ancient Greeks believed this location represented the exact center of the world, marked by the sacred stone known as the omphalos, literally meaning the navel of the earth. The natural amphitheater formed by the surrounding mountains created an acoustically remarkable environment where sound carried with unusual clarity and resonance. This geographical feature would later contribute to the oracle's reputation for delivering prophecies with supernatural authority. The site's dramatic beauty, with its steep cliffs, olive groves, and panoramic vistas stretching toward the Gulf of Corinth, inspired awe and reverence in ancient visitors, reinforcing the belief that this was indeed a place where the divine and mortal worlds intersected. Archaeological evidence reveals that the area around Delphi has been continuously inhabited since at least the Neolithic period, with artifacts dating back to approximately 4000 BCE discovered in the Korikaean Andron cave on Mount Parnassus. This long history of human habitation suggests that the site possessed special significance long before the establishment of Apollo's oracle, possibly serving as a center for earth goddess worship in prehistoric times. Mythological origins and the legend of Python. The mythological foundation of the Oracle of Delphi is inextricably linked to one of the most famous stories in Greek mythology, Apollo's victory over the serpent Python. According to ancient tradition, the site was originally sacred to Gaia, the primordial earth goddess, and was guarded by Python, a massive serpent that embodied the chthonic powers of the underworld. This serpent was said to be either the offspring of Gaia herself or a creature born from the mud left behind after the great flood that destroyed the previous age of humanity. The young god Apollo, seeking to establish his own oracle and assert his divine authority, journeyed to Delphi and engaged the fearsome Python in combat. Using his silver bow and arrows, Apollo slew the serpent after a fierce battle, claiming the site as his own sacred precinct. The name Pythia, given to the oracle priestess, derives from this mythological event, commemorating Apollo's victory over the Python. Similarly, the alternative name for the site, Pytho, also references this foundational myth. This mythological narrative served multiple symbolic functions in ancient Greek culture. It represented the triumph of the new Olympian order over the older chthonic deities, symbolizing the transition from a matriarchal earth-centered religion to a patriarchal sky god-centered system. The story also embodied themes of civilization, conquering chaos, light overcoming darkness, and rational order prevailing over primal forces. These symbolic meanings resonated deeply with Greek audiences and helped establish Apollo's credentials as a god of prophecy, healing, music, and rational thought. However, the mythological account also preserved important elements of the site's pre-Apollonian past. The retention of Python's name in the title Pythia and the continued association with prophetic powers suggests that Apollo's takeover of the site involved incorporating and transforming existing religious practices rather than completely replacing them. This syncretic approach was typical of Greek religious development, where new deities often absorbed the attributes and cult sites of their predecessors. Historical development and archaeological evidence. While mythology provides one account of Delphi's origins, archaeological evidence offers a more complex and nuanced picture of the site's historical development. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed that the Oracle of Delphi's true origins can be traced to the end of the 9th century BCE, when the first temple dedicated to Apollo was constructed at the site. This dating contradicts earlier claims that placed the oracle's establishment much earlier in history. The earliest archaeological evidence for organized religious activity at Delphi dates to the late Mycenaean period, approximately the 15th century BCE. During this time, the site appears to have served as a local shrine, possibly dedicated to an earth goddess or chthonic deity. Pottery fragments, votive offerings, and ritual objects from this period suggest continuous religious usage, even if the specific nature of worship evolved over time. The transformation of Delphi into a pan-Hellenic sanctuary began during the 8th century BCE, coinciding with the broader religious and cultural renaissance that characterized the archaic period of Greek history. According to historical sources, priests from Knossos in Crete played a crucial role in establishing Apollo's cult at Delphi, bringing with them sophisticated religious practices and organizational structures that would form the foundation of the later oracle system. The construction of the first permanent temple dedicated to Apollo marked a significant milestone in Delphi's development. This structure, built of local limestone and decorated with terracotta ornaments, established the basic layout and architectural principles that would govern subsequent temple constructions. The temple housed the sacred Aditon, the innermost sanctuary where the Pythia delivered her prophecies, and provided a suitable setting for the elaborate rituals that surrounded oracular consultations. Throughout its history, the Temple of Apollo at Delphi was rebuilt multiple times due to damage from earthquakes, fires, and other natural disasters. The most famous reconstruction occurred in the 6th century BCE, funded by the wealthy Alcmaeonid family of Athens, and featuring magnificent marble sculptures created by some of the greatest artists of the age. Each rebuilding project incorporated new architectural innovations and artistic achievements, making the temple a showcase of evolving Greek artistic and engineering capabilities. The Pythia, sacred priestess and divine medium. At the heart of the Delphic oracle system stood the Pythia, the sacred priestess who served as Apollo's earthly voice. The selection, training, and ritual practices of the Pythia were shrouded in secrecy and surrounded by elaborate ceremonial protocols that enhanced her mystical authority and divine credentials. The Pythia was always a woman, typically over 50 years of age, chosen from among the local population of Delphi. This age requirement reflected ancient Greek beliefs about female purity and spiritual wisdom, as older women were considered to have transcended earthly desires and achieved a state of spiritual maturity suitable for divine communion. Upon her selection, the Pythia was required to abandon her previous life, including any marriage or family obligations, and dedicate herself entirely to Apollo's service. The process of delivering oracles involved elaborate purification rituals that prepared the Pythia for her divine role. These ceremonies typically began before dawn on designated oracle days, which occurred once per month during the warmer seasons of the year. The Pythia would first bathe in the sacred Castalian spring, whose waters were believed to possess purifying properties that cleansed both body and spirit. Following this ritual ablution, she would don special ceremonial garments and consume sacred bay leaves, which were associated with Apollo and believed to enhance prophetic abilities. The actual oracle session took place within the Aditon, the most sacred area of the temple that was forbidden to ordinary mortals. Archaeological excavations have revealed that this chamber was located directly over a natural geological fissure in the earth from which strange vapours occasionally emerged. The Pythia would seat herself upon a tripod stool positioned over this crack, breathing in the mysterious emanations while entering a trance-like state that contemporaries described as divine possession. Modern scientific investigations have provided intriguing explanations for the physical phenomena observed at Delphi. Geological surveys have confirmed the presence of intersecting fault lines beneath the temple, and chemical analysis of spring water in the area has detected the presence of ethylene, a naturally occurring gas with mild hallucinogenic properties. The combination of geological activity, chemical vapours, and ritual preparation likely contributed to the altered states of consciousness experienced by the Pythia, providing a rational basis for her prophetic utterances while preserving the sense of divine mystery that surrounded the oracle. The consultation process and oracular responses. Consulting the Oracle of Delphi was a complex and expensive undertaking that required careful preparation, substantial financial resources, and patience. The process reflected both the sacred nature of the institution and its role as a major economic enterprise that generated significant revenue for the sanctuary and surrounding community. Individuals or city-states wishing to consult the oracle were required to make advance arrangements and pay substantial fees that varied according to the importance of their questions and their ability to pay. Private citizens typically paid a standard consultation fee called the pelanos, while rulers and city-states were expected to make much larger donations proportional to their wealth and status. These payments, along with elaborate votive offerings, funded the temple's operations and supported the large staff of priests, attendants, and administrators who managed the oracle's affairs. The consultation process began with ritual purification ceremonies similar to those undergone by the Pythia herself. Visitors would bathe in the Castalian spring, make preliminary offerings to Apollo, and participate in sacrifice ceremonies that typically involved the ritual slaughter of a goat or other suitable animal. The acceptance or rejection of these sacrificial offerings was interpreted as Apollo's willingness or unwillingness to provide oracular guidance, adding another layer of divine authority to the proceedings. Questions submitted to the oracle covered an extraordinary range of topics, from personal matters such as marriage, childbearing, and business decisions to major political and military issues affecting entire nations. Archaeological evidence from lead tablets and literary sources reveals that typical inquiries included requests for guidance on founding new colonies, declarations of war, religious reforms, legal codes, and diplomatic initiatives. The breadth and significance of these questions underscore the oracle's central role in ancient Mediterranean civilization. The Pythia's responses were typically delivered in an altered state of consciousness that witnesses described as divine possession. Contemporary accounts describe her as speaking in fragmented phrases, incomprehensible utterances, and sometimes violent physical convulsions that were interpreted as signs of Apollo's presence within her. These raw prophetic utterances were then interpreted and translated into coherent responses by the attending priests, who possessed the knowledge and authority necessary to decode divine messages for mortal understanding. The famous ambiguity of Delphic prophecies was not merely a result of priestly interpretation, but reflected a sophisticated understanding of the complex and uncertain nature of future events. Rather than providing specific predictions, oracular responses typically offered guidance that could be applied to multiple situations or interpreted in various ways depending on subsequent developments. This flexibility allowed the oracle to maintain its reputation for accuracy while acknowledging the inherent uncertainty of human affairs. Political influence and interstate diplomacy. The Oracle of Delphi wielded unprecedented influence in ancient Greek politics, serving as a crucial mediating institution in interstate relations and providing divine legitimacy for major political decisions. This influence extended far beyond religious matters, encompassing warfare, colonization, constitutional reform, and diplomatic negotiations throughout the Greek world and beyond. One of the oracle's most significant political functions involved the sanctioning of new colonial ventures. During the Great Age of Greek colonization from the 8th to 6th centuries BCE, city-states regularly consulted Delphi before establishing new settlements in distant lands. The oracle's approval provided divine authorization for these dangerous and expensive undertakings, while its guidance helped determine suitable locations and organizational structures for new colonies. Famous colonies such as Cyrene in North Africa, Massalia in southern France, and numerous settlements in Sicily and southern Italy all received Delphic sanction and guidance. The oracle's involvement in colonial enterprises served multiple purposes beyond mere religious authorization. The priests of Delphi possessed extensive geographical knowledge accumulated through centuries of international contacts, making them valuable advisors on practical matters such as suitable harbours, fertile agricultural land, and potential conflicts with existing populations. This combination of divine authority and practical expertise made Delphic guidance particularly valuable for colonial enterprises. In matters of warfare, the oracle's influence was equally profound. City-states and individual rulers routinely sought divine approval before launching military campaigns, and oracular responses could significantly influence the timing, strategy, and objectives of military operations. The famous prophecy delivered to King Croesus of Lydia, warning that crossing the river Halys would result in the destruction of a great kingdom, demonstrates both the oracle's international reputation and the potentially catastrophic consequences of misinterpreting prophetic guidance. The Oracle of Delphi also played a crucial role in constitutional and legal reforms throughout the Greek world. Many of the fundamental political innovations that characterized classical Greek civilization, including democratic institutions, written law codes, and federal leagues, received divine sanction from Delphi. The oracle's support provided legitimacy for radical political changes that might otherwise have faced fierce resistance from conservative elements within society. Perhaps most importantly, Delphi served as a neutral meeting ground where representatives of different city-states could engage in diplomatic negotiations under the protection of Apollo's sacred authority. The concept of sacred truce, which temporarily suspended hostilities during major religious festivals, originated at Delphi and was later extended to other pan-Hellenic sanctuaries such as Olympia. These truces created opportunities for peaceful communication between otherwise hostile states and helped establish diplomatic protocols that would influence international relations for centuries. The Amphictyonic League and religious governance. The political influence of Delphi was institutionalized through the Amphictyonic League, a religious and political confederation that governed the sanctuary and surrounding region. This league represented one of the earliest examples of federal governance in Western civilization and demonstrated how religious institutions could provide the foundation for sophisticated political organizations. The Amphictyonic League originally consisted of 12 tribes or ethnic groups from central and northern Greece, each contributing 2 representatives to a governing council that met twice yearly at Delphi. These representatives, known as Hieromnemon and Pylagoras, were responsible for overseeing the sanctuary's administration, resolving disputes between member states and organizing the Pythian Games, one of the 4 great pan-Hellenic athletic festivals. The League's authority extended beyond purely religious matters to include significant political and military functions. It could declare sacred wars against states that violated religious law or threatened the sanctuary's security, levy troops and financial contributions from member states, and mediate disputes between different political entities. The League's decisions carried divine authority derived from Apollo's sacred presence at Delphi, making resistance to its rulings tantamount to sacrilege. The most famous example of the League's military authority was the series of sacred wars fought between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE. These conflicts arose from disputes over control of Delphi and violations of religious law, ultimately involving most of the major Greek city-states and significantly influencing the balance of power in the Greek world. The first sacred war resulted in the destruction of Crisa, a city that had attempted to control access to Delphi. while subsequent sacred wars involved figures such as Philip II of Macedon and played crucial roles in the rise of Macedonian power. The Amphictyonic League's governance structure influenced the development of federal institutions throughout the Greek world and beyond. Its combination of religious authority and practical political power provided a model for later confederations such as the Achaean League and the Aetolian League, while its emphasis on shared governance and collective decision-making contributed to the development of democratic institutions in individual city-states. Economic impact and sacred economy. The Oracle of Delphi generated enormous wealth through its religious and political activities, creating a complex sacred economy that sustained not only the sanctuary itself, but also the surrounding region and numerous dependent communities. This economic system demonstrates how religious institutions in the ancient world could function as major centers of commercial and financial activity. The primary sources of revenue included consultation fees paid by individuals and city-states seeking oracular guidance, elaborate votive offerings dedicated to Apollo, and the profits generated by the Pythian Games and associated religious festivals. Archaeological evidence reveals the extraordinary value of these offerings, which included precious metals, elaborate sculptures, architectural monuments, and entire treasuries built by wealthy city-states to house their dedications. The sanctuary's treasuries served as both religious monuments and practical storage facilities for the accumulated wealth of centuries. These buildings, constructed by individual city-states as demonstrations of their piety and prosperity, housed collections of gold, silver, ivory, and other precious materials that represented some of the greatest concentrations of wealth in the ancient world. The treasuries also served as banks, providing secure storage for valuable objects, and facilitating complex financial transactions between different political entities. The economic impact of Delphi extended far beyond the sanctuary itself to encompass the entire surrounding region. The constant flow of pilgrims, diplomatic missions, and religious festivals created demand for food, lodging, transportation, and crafted goods that supported numerous local industries. Specialized craftsmen produced votive offerings, ceremonial objects, and souvenirs for visitors, while farmers and merchants supplied the food and materials necessary to sustain the sanctuary's operations. The Pythian Games, held every 4 years to honor Apollo, generated additional economic activity comparable to that of the Olympic Games. These festivals attracted athletes, spectators, and merchants from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating temporary populations that sometimes exceeded those of major cities. The Games featured not only athletic competitions, but also musical and poetic contests that reflected Apollo's role as god of the arts, making Delphi a major cultural center as well as a religious sanctuary. The sanctuary's financial operations required sophisticated administrative systems to manage its complex revenues and expenditures. Priests and temple officials developed accounting procedures, record-keeping systems, and financial instruments that influenced commercial practices throughout the Greek world. The temple's role as a secure repository for valuables also led to its involvement in international banking and credit arrangements, making Delphi a major player in Mediterranean financial networks. Cultural and artistic legacy. Beyond its political and economic influence, the Oracle of Delphi served as a major center for artistic and cultural development that attracted some of the greatest creative talents of the ancient world. The sanctuary's wealth, international connections, and sacred status made it an ideal patron for ambitious artistic projects that pushed the boundaries of contemporary aesthetic and technical achievement. The Temple of Apollo itself represented a masterpiece of Greek religious architecture, featuring innovative design elements and decorative programs that influenced temple construction throughout the Greek world. The building's sculptural decorations, created by master artists such as the sculptors of the Siphnian Treasury and the Temple of Apollo's pediments, established new standards for narrative relief sculpture and architectural integration. The sanctuary's numerous treasuries provided additional opportunities for artistic innovation and experimentation. These buildings, designed to showcase the wealth and cultural sophistication of their sponsoring city-states, featured elaborate architectural details, sculptural programs, and decorative elements that represented the cutting edge of contemporary artistic achievement. The treasury of the Athenians, for example, featured metopes depicting the labours of Heracles and Theseus that rank among the finest examples of early classical sculpture. The Pythian games elevated Delphi's cultural significance by featuring musical and poetic competitions alongside traditional athletic events. These contests attracted poets, musicians and performers from throughout the Greek world, making the sanctuary a major centre for the development and dissemination of new artistic styles and literary forms. Winners of Pythian competitions achieved international fame and recognition that could launch distinguished careers in court and civic contexts. The oracle's influence on Greek literature and philosophy was equally profound. The famous Delphic maxims, including "Know thyself and nothing in excess," became foundational principles of Greek ethical and philosophical thought. These brief moral precepts, inscribed on the temple walls and attributed to the 7 sages of antiquity, encapsulated essential aspects of Greek wisdom and influenced generations of thinkers from Socrates to the Stoics. The mysterious and often ambiguous nature of oracular responses provided rich material for Greek tragedy, comedy, and historical writing. Playwrights such as Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides frequently incorporated Delphic prophecies into their dramatic works, using the oracle's pronouncements as plot devices that explored themes of fate, free will, divine justice, and human limitations. Similarly, historians such as Herodotus and Thucydides documented the oracle's role in major historical events, preserving detailed accounts of oracular consultations and their consequences. Scientific and rational explanations. While ancient Greeks attributed the Pythia's prophetic abilities to divine possession by Apollo, modern scientific investigation has provided alternative explanations for the phenomena observed at Delphi. These rational interpretations do not diminish the historical significance of the oracle, but rather illuminate the complex interplay between natural phenomena, human psychology, and religious belief that made the institution so influential. Geological surveys of the Delphi site have revealed the presence of 2 intersecting fault lines that run directly beneath the Temple of Apollo. These geological features, known as the Delphi Fault and the Kerner Fault, create conditions conducive to seismic activity and the release of gases from deep within the Earth. Ancient sources frequently mention earthquakes and mysterious vapors at Delphi, phenomena that can now be understood as natural consequences of the site's geological situation. Chemical analysis of spring water and gas emissions in the Delphi area has detected the presence of several naturally occurring compounds with psychoactive properties. Ethylene, a sweet-smelling gas with mild hallucinogenic effects, appears to be the most likely candidate for the mysterious vapors that ancient sources associated with prophetic inspiration. When inhaled in small quantities, ethylene can produce euphoria, altered consciousness, and dissociative experiences that closely match ancient descriptions of the Pythia's behavior during oracle sessions. The ritual practices surrounding oracular consultations may have enhanced these natural psychoactive effects through psychological and physiological means. The Pythia's consumption of bay leaves, which contain small amounts of compounds with mild stimulant properties, combined with fasting, ritual purification, and the dramatic ceremonial context, could have intensified her altered state of consciousness. The combination of natural gases, ritualistic preparation, and psychological expectation created ideal conditions for the trance-like states that characterized oracular sessions. Modern understanding of crowd psychology and social dynamics also provides insights into the oracle's influence and apparent accuracy. The deliberately ambiguous nature of many oracular responses allowed for multiple interpretations that could be adapted to changing circumstances, while the oracle's reputation for accuracy was maintained through selective memory and post hoc rationalization of prophetic statements. The social and political networks surrounding Delphi also provided priests with extensive information about contemporary events and trends that could inform their interpretation of the Pythia's utterances. These scientific explanations do not invalidate the religious and cultural significance of the Oracle of Delphi, but rather demonstrate the sophisticated ways in which ancient peoples integrated natural phenomena, psychological insights, and social institutions to create powerful and influential religious systems. The oracle's enduring impact on Greek civilization testifies to the effectiveness of this integration, regardless of whether its prophetic claims possess supernatural validity. Notable historical consultations. Throughout its long history, the Oracle of Delphi was consulted by numerous famous historical figures whose oracular experiences have been preserved in ancient literature and historical sources. These documented consultations provide valuable insights into the oracle's methods, influence, and role in shaping major historical events. One of the most famous oracular consultations involved Croesus, the wealthy king of Lydia who ruled in the 6th century BCE. According to Herodotus, Croesus tested the oracle's accuracy by sending messengers to ask what he was doing on a specific day, receiving the correct response that he was cooking a lamb and tortoise in a bronze cauldron. Impressed by this demonstration, Croesus consulted the oracle about his planned war against Cyrus of Persia, receiving the famous response that if he crossed the river Halys, he would destroy a great kingdom. When Croesus subsequently suffered defeat and lost his own kingdom, the oracle's response proved prophetically accurate, though not in the way the king had anticipated. The Athenian statesman Solon, one of the 7 sages of Greece and a crucial figure in the development of democratic institutions, consulted Delphi regarding his constitutional reforms in the early 6th century BCE. The oracle's endorsement provided divine authority for Solon's radical legal and political changes, including the abolition of debt slavery and the establishment of new governmental structures that laid the foundation for Athenian democracy. During the Persian Wars, the Oracle of Delphi played a crucial role in Greek resistance efforts. When the Persian invasion led by Xerxes threatened Greek independence, the Athenians consulted the oracle and received initially discouraging responses that seemed to predict the city's destruction. However, a second consultation produced the famous wooden walls prophecy, which the Athenian leader Themistocles interpreted as referring to the city's naval fleet. This interpretation influenced the Athenian decision to evacuate the city and concentrate their forces at sea, ultimately leading to the decisive Greek victory at the Battle of Salamis. The Spartan general Lysander consulted the oracle during the final phases of the Peloponnesian War, seeking divine guidance for his campaign against Athens. The oracular responses he received helped justify Spartan actions and provided religious legitimacy for the ultimate Spartan victory. However, Lysander's subsequent attempts to manipulate oracular responses for his own political purposes led to scandal and demonstrated the potential for abuse inherent in the oracle system. Alexander the Great's consultation of the oracle represents one of the last great examples of its political influence. When Alexander visited Delphi early in his career, he demanded an immediate consultation, despite it being outside the normal schedule for oracular sessions. When the Pythia initially refused, Alexander reportedly dragged her to the temple, prompting her to exclaim that he was invincible. Alexander accepted this as his oracle and left immediately, using the divine endorsement to justify his subsequent conquests. These and other documented consultations reveal the complex dynamics between religious authority, political power, and individual ambition that characterize the oracle's operations. They also demonstrate the institution's remarkable ability to maintain its influence and reputation across centuries of political and social change. Decline and fall. The decline of the Oracle of Delphi was a gradual process that unfolded over several centuries, reflecting broader changes in religious belief, political organization, and cultural values that transformed the ancient Mediterranean world. Multiple factors contributed to this decline, including the rise of rational philosophy, the growth of Roman power, the spread of Christianity, and changing patterns of political and economic organization. The intellectual revolution initiated by Greek philosophers during the 5th and 4th centuries BCE posed the first serious challenge to oracular authority. Thinkers such as Xenophanes, Heraclitus, and later the Sophists questioned traditional religious beliefs and proposed rational alternatives to supernatural explanations for natural phenomena. While these philosophical movements initially affected only educated elites, Their influence gradually permeated broader segments of society and contributed to a more skeptical attitude toward claims of divine revelation. The conquest of Greece by Philip II of Macedon and subsequently Alexander the Great marked a significant turning point in Delphi's political influence. The rise of Hellenistic kingdoms reduced the importance of traditional city-state politics and created new centers of power that were less dependent on traditional Greek religious institutions. While Hellenistic rulers continued to consult Delphi occasionally, they were more likely to rely on court philosophers, advisors, and their own political judgment in making major decisions. Roman involvement in Greek affairs further accelerated Delphi's decline. Although early Roman leaders showed respect for the oracle and occasionally sought its guidance, Roman political culture was fundamentally different from that of classical Greece. Roman religion emphasized state cults and official augury rather than independent oracular institutions, and Roman political decision-making relied more heavily on senatorial deliberation and military considerations than on religious consultation. The physical destruction of Delphi during various conflicts also contributed to its decline. The sanctuary suffered significant damage during the sacred wars of the 4th century BCE, and later conflicts involving Romans, Gauls, and other forces resulted in the loss or theft of many treasures and architectural monuments. While the sanctuary was periodically restored, it never fully recovered its former magnificence and wealth. The rise of Christianity posed the most fundamental challenge to pagan oracular institutions such as Delphi. Christian doctrine rejected divination and prophecy outside the biblical tradition, viewing pagan oracles as either deceptions or manifestations of demonic influence. As Christianity gained official recognition and eventually became the Roman Empire's state religion, traditional pagan practices faced increasing persecution and legal restrictions. The oracle's final period of operation during the Roman imperial era was marked by declining consultation rates, reduced international influence, and increasing competition from other religious and philosophical systems. The last recorded oracular consultation occurred in 393 CE, when the Roman Emperor Theodosius I issued edicts closing pagan temples throughout the empire. Pythia's final prophecy, according to late sources, lamented the end of her sacred role and the silencing of Apollo's voice. Archaeological discoveries and modern understanding. Modern archaeological investigation of Delphi began in the late 19th century and has continued to the present day, revealing remarkable insights into the sanctuary's history, organization, and cultural significance. These discoveries have both confirmed and complicated ancient literary accounts of the oracle, providing a more nuanced understanding of how the institution actually functioned. The great excavation conducted by the French school at Athens beginning in 1892 uncovered the basic layout and architectural development of the sanctuary. These excavations revealed the remains of multiple temples dedicated to Apollo, numerous treasuries built by different city-states, the ancient theatre where musical competitions were held, and the stadium where athletic events took place during the Pythian Games. The discovery of thousands of inscriptions, sculptures, and votive offerings provided unprecedented documentation of the sanctuary's international connections and cultural influence. Particularly significant was the discovery of the Charioteer of Delphi, one of the finest examples of ancient bronze sculpture to survive from antiquity. This masterpiece, created around 470 BCE to commemorate a victory in the Pythian Games, demonstrates the extraordinary artistic quality of dedications made at the sanctuary and illustrates the cultural importance of the religious festivals held there. The excavation of the treasury of the Athenians provided crucial insights into the political and artistic functions of these buildings. The treasury's metopes, depicting mythological scenes related to Athenian heroic traditions, revealed how city-states used architectural sculpture to assert their cultural identity and political claims within the pan-Hellenic context of Delphi. Recent archaeological work has focused on understanding the sanctuary's broader landscape and its relationship to the surrounding environment. Surveys of the Sacred Way, the processional route leading to the temple, have revealed how the spatial organization of monuments created a carefully orchestrated experience for visitors approaching the oracle. The positioning of treasuries, statues and other dedications along this route reflected complex negotiations between different city-states for prestigious locations within the sacred precinct. Scientific analysis of the sanctuary's geological setting has provided valuable insights into the natural phenomena that ancient sources associated with oracular inspiration. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic studies have confirmed the presence of fault lines beneath the temple, while chemical analysis of spring water and gas emissions has identified naturally occurring compounds that could have contributed to the Pythia's altered states of consciousness. The discovery of lead-cursed tablets and other votive offerings has illuminated the personal and private dimensions of religious practice at Delphi. These objects, many inscribed with individual names and specific requests for divine intervention, reveal that the sanctuary served not only as a center for major political consultations, but also as a place where ordinary people sought divine assistance with personal problems and concerns. Legacy and continuing influence. The Oracle of Delphi's influence extends far beyond its historical existence, continuing to shape Western thought, literature and culture in numerous ways. The institution's emphasis on self-knowledge, moral wisdom, and the careful consideration of human limitations established philosophical and ethical principles that remain relevant to contemporary discussions of wisdom, leadership, and decision-making. The famous Delphic maxim, "Know thyself," became a cornerstone of Western philosophical tradition, influencing thinkers from Socrates to modern psychologists and philosophers. This principle, which encouraged individuals to understand their own capabilities, limitations, and motivations, provided a foundation for ethical reflection and personal development that continues to resonate in contemporary contexts. The oracle's approach to prophecy and guidance, emphasizing ambiguity, multiple interpretations, and the importance of human agency in determining outcomes, has influenced literary and artistic traditions throughout Western culture. The concept of prophetic ambiguity, where divine guidance requires human interpretation and carries risks of misunderstanding, appears in works ranging from Shakespeare's Macbeth to modern psychological thrillers. Modern political and diplomatic institutions have drawn lessons from Delphi's role as a neutral mediating authority capable of facilitating communication between hostile parties. The concept of neutral ground protected by sacred authority has influenced the development of international law, diplomatic protocol, and conflict resolution mechanisms. Contemporary international organizations such as the United Nations reflect some of the same principles that made Delphi an effective center for interstate relations in the ancient world. The archaeological preservation and presentation of Delphi as a UNESCO World Heritage Site has made the ancient sanctuary a powerful symbol of cultural heritage and international cooperation. The site attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors annually, serving as an educational resource that promotes understanding of ancient Greek civilization and its contributions to world culture. In psychological and therapeutic contexts, the oracle's emphasis on the integration of rational and intuitive approaches to decision-making has influenced the development of various counseling and guidance methodologies. The recognition that important decisions often require the consideration of both logical analysis and deeper, less easily articulated insights reflects principles that were central to Delphic practice. The Oracle of Delphi also continues to inspire artistic and literary works that explore themes of prophecy, divine communication, and the relationship between human knowledge and cosmic wisdom. Contemporary novels, films, and other cultural productions frequently reference Delphic themes and imagery, demonstrating the enduring power of these ancient symbols and concepts. The Oracle of Delphi stands as one of the most remarkable and influential institutions in human history, representing a unique synthesis of religious devotion, political wisdom, cultural achievement, and psychological insight that sustained its authority for over a millennium. From its mythological origins in Apollo's victory over Python to its final silencing under Christian Roman rule, the Oracle shaped the development of Greek civilization and influenced the broader course of Mediterranean history in ways that continue to resonate today. The institution's success derived from its ability to serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing divine legitimacy for political decisions, facilitating interstate communication and diplomacy, supporting artistic and cultural development, and offering personal guidance to individuals facing difficult choices. This multifaceted role made Delphi indispensable to Greek society and attracted the attention and support of people throughout the ancient world.